So let's talk about what it is to be a food addict. What is the state of food addiction? How is it seen by the general public? What is a food addict supposed to do? Where are we supposed to find help? And is there actually help for food addicts? And if so, where's it at? So I am Dustin Brown. I have lost 285 pounds. I am a food addict. I am in recovery. I am abstinent from my trigger foods, which I'm very proud of. And it has absolutely changed my life. I have found a peace and a tranquility with food that I did not know existed previous in my 20 years of trying to lose the weight and regain the weight and lose the weight and binge and binge and binge until I almost died. I know very well food addiction. I tried to lose weight with the addiction without acknowledging it. From 2006 to 2009, I lost 250 pounds. I went from 475 pounds at 5'7" to 217 pounds. I allowed myself to binge on the weekend all of my foods that I'm addicted to. So I would severely restrict during the week, and then I would allow myself to have those foods during the weekend in a cheat meal that sometimes would be a cheat day, etc. But I did manage to lose 250 pounds that way. But of course, that wasn't sustainable because I did not even address or know that I had a food addiction, which is what I feel most food addicts are probably still at that stage because food addiction is not studied and food addiction does not have the DSM. Psychologists do not recognize it. So there is no literature confirming food addiction. There is a lot of studies that suggest it, but they have not went further in those studies. The argument against food addiction is that it's an eating disorder. That's the main confusion, is that a food addiction is an eating disorder and that you cannot for some reason be addicted to food. Now, one of the big problems they say is with food addiction, which is why they don't want it to actually be a thing, is because how do you treat a food addiction? Everyone needs food to eat. But this is a misunderstanding. Of course, in order to treat a food addiction, you don't cut out food. Like, I would be dead if I hadn't eaten in 6 years. I had a lot of extra cushion, but it wasn't enough to sustain me for 6 years. That means just cutting out the trigger substances that set a food addict off, set that compulsive addiction behavior off in their minds. In order to do that, you've got to cut out your addicted substance. There is no one who ever tells an alcoholic they need to repair their relationship with alcohol. No one tells a heroin addict they need to shoot up every once in a while or their life is sad. That doesn't happen, but it happens to food addicts all the time. The reason is they have not done the science, the studies to prove that food addiction is a thing, which I think is, obviously as a food addict, is an obvious thing. Like, people can get addicted to anything. People can get addicted to gambling. They can get addicted to sex. Why couldn't they get addicted to food? Something that literally rewards your brains with chemicals, the same ones used in addiction. So the main argument against food addiction being an actual thing is they say that it doesn't change the structure of your brain, so you don't physically need it and you do not relapse if you have it later. And these are things that my life directly contradict because when I get around my trigger food, if I smell it, if I hold it in my hand, my body physically reacts. I start shaking and like I need it. Like I start like having this obsessive, like really strong thought to where like even touching it is too dangerous. Opening the box is too dangerous. I can't just throw it away in the trash. I have to pour hot sauce on it, or I have to put it down the garbage disposal, or I have to give it to someone else so that they take it away because I know from much experience that I can't control it. To tell someone like me who's lived this life that I've lived, that finally acknowledged that he had an addiction, and through that acknowledgement and through treating it like an addiction and cutting out those things that triggered me and keeping them cut out from my life, I found a peace with eating that I didn't even know it existed. I had no idea. I had dreamed of a possibility where I wouldn't have to binge at least every week because the longest I could ever go was a week, and then I would just snap and break. And all of that shame and everything that came along with that, I didn't know it was an addiction. I thought it was just my weakness of character, and I didn't understand, and it just absolutely destroyed my self-esteem. I wish I had known earlier. Making that change is the reason I'm here. Had I not made that change, had I done what fitness coaches would say, or some psychiatrists would say, or some doctors would say, even a lot of nutritionists will say, and continue to eat, keep having Oreos, Dustin, every once in a while, it would never stop with one. There's a saying with addiction that one is too many and 1,000 is not enough. and that fits perfectly. So to tell me or any other food addict to do that is literally to give them advice that will and can kill them. And I've seen it happen many times. This is a real thing. Obesity is very hard on you anyway, but with food addiction, usually there are big swings in weight. I've had massive swings in weight throughout my life, and it's usually this just constant fight, and it's not good for your body. It's not good for your heart. It's really bad. Mentally, physically, spiritually, it really does take you down. The only way that I have ever seen anyone do it, including myself, is to abstain from the trigger foods. I also know that, and I've experienced this throughout my last 6 years with some things that I didn't know had processed sugar in them or just bad decisions. Once that process starts, just having a little there is definitely a relapse there. And to get out of that takes days of mental turmoil, days of that same anguish I used to live with every single day before I can get back to that peace. That peace that is only otherwise described by people in recovery from their addiction. So you can argue that food addiction isn't a thing. I can't even exist in that reality because I wouldn't fit in. Because if food addiction wasn't a thing, then I should have relapsed because I was restricting. And if I had binge eating disorder, all of this massive amount of 6-year restriction that would just have me snapping back in a spectacular fashion. But instead, I'm at peace. I have a relationship with food that is better than it's ever been. I actually healed my relationship with food by cutting out my trigger substance. And I am not alone in this. I am not speaking for myself. I am out of these woods. I'm in a good place. I'm stable. But there are many who aren't. And where do they go for help? What happens realistically to them when they go for help? They follow almost all fitness influencers, people on social media that are telling them what to do. They're going to be given advice that's going to be detrimental to them. And it's because of the lack of awareness. It's because the people with the food addiction aren't listened to. I don't know how many times I've been told to eat my trigger food, that I'm being ridiculous, that my life is sad because I'm not doing it. These are not things you would say to people in recovery from other addictions. It's because it's outright not believed. And that is a difficult thing because for a food addict, our journey is already incredibly lonely. When I gave up my trigger foods, I was pushed a lot by family and friends to have them. People don't understand. There's no awareness. And it is very hard to be coming off of an addiction, trying to be clean, and someone offering you your trigger substance, someone saying, here, alcoholic, here, don't you want some of this vodka? Come on, have some. Why won't you can't not have this? And that's what food addicts have to go through. And a lot of food addicts, if you're watching this, you're going to know what I'm talking about because I see the comments all the time. So many people relate to me because I am telling you how it is, not how I wish it was, not how you think it is, but how it actually is. I just want people to understand that an eating disorder, it's a valid thing. It does exist. I'm not saying that no one should ever heal their relationship with food. I'm saying that please think about and include the people that can't. And at the least, do not give them information and advice that are going to send them to their own demise because they are going to blame themselves for that because most likely they don't know. I speak to myself from the past, basically. Everything I say is what I would say to myself from the past because I know people are still there. That's the only reason I'm talking. I'm here to help. That's why I'm here. I've got out of this. I don't see many people who've gotten out of a food addiction. There's just not much there. There's OA and there's FA. Overeaters Anonymous just takes alcoholics and it changes the word alcohol to food. But that doesn't cover it because there are certain things that happen in food addiction that don't happen in any other addiction. There are certain challenges that we face that no one else faces. I mean, it helps some people, and for that, great, but overall, I think that the turnover rate is too bad. And what happens when they fall through the OA crack and the FA crack? Where is there to go from there? And there's nowhere else. So I think we really need to have awareness for this because these people don't even know what to do, and they're being given terrible information and blaming themselves when it's not working out. So please understand that there are some people that cannot heal their relationship with food, and they should not be suggested to do so. Food addiction is real. I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like to see more longer talks like this, let me know. And I will talk to you all soon. Until next time, knuckle up.